for you, how strong is strong enough in the realm of soccer?
So, I oversee our entire club. We have a men's and women's side. But oddly, I work almost exclusively with the women right now. One of my assistants work with the men. I work with the women. Our women is the higher level club. They're first division. Our men is second division. And our women have a higher budget, and they can afford to have me out all the time and that kind of thing. So I'm with the women all the time. So my numbers I'll give you my numbers for women, or my experience with our women. We strength train at least once a week all year long. So in the weight room, not a body weight circuit on the pitch or anything like that. We're in the weight room at least once a week all year long. Much of the year we're in the weight room 2 times a week, and goalkeepers are oftentimes in the weight room 3 times a week. Now, this is when I say this is non-negotiable, I mean we're doing that for the entire 42 plus weeks of the year. There's not weeks where we're saying, oh, there was a match, the athletes are tired, we're not going to go in the weight room. No, we're going in the weight room. We're going to lift reasonably heavy once a week at least, and we're going to sprint at least once a week. Those are non-negotiables, non-starters for us. I guarantee you we do that. We do it every single week. And those are the absolute minimums for us. What does the weight training look like? We're on a 3 to 4 week cycle, depending on the match schedule. And the thing that will trigger us to switch early or late would be whether there's a break in the schedule. So our match density is similar to what you might see in Europe, in that, it's typically a match on Saturday, occasionally a match on Wednesday, occasionally you might have a Sunday. Very, very rarely you'd have a Sunday, Wednesday, Saturday scenario. So 3 games in a 6-day period. That might happen once a year for us, and that would be the only time where we did not do a strength training session, because of course you're traveling. In the US, you have coast to coast is 5 to 6 hours of travel at the very minimum, and 3 games in 6 days is just a lot. So we might not strength train in those scenarios, at least not for our starting 11. But when we do get a break in the schedule, that's where I might switch the routine up a little bit. But for a 3 to 4 week span, the routine is going to be fairly similar with iterative changes, meaning we're just going to have a very small evolution. We might go from 3 reps to 2 reps, or change our sets and rep scheme, or add load, or a slight variation on an exercise. Because one thing I found with team sports is that they don't like to be sore when they're in season. Track and field athletes are fine with this. They don't really care. I work with weightlifters. They don't care about being sore, but team sport athletes don't like to be sore, especially in soccer, football. So I generally won't let them get too sore in season. They'll get a little sore, but usually what triggers the soreness is a switch up of the program. So if we change the program, they'll get sore just from the sheer novelty of the training. So my exercise selection stays pretty fixed for about 3 to 4 weeks. And then when we switch it up, we have the opportunity to change it, either because I need to change it at 4 or 5 weeks, or because there's a break in the schedule. I will match that up with a period where it has less impact on the game, the upcoming game. Now, the actual programming itself is pretty basic. So we do Olympic lifts or derivatives of them. Sometimes we might have athletes clean pull, or a hex bar deadlift or hex bar deadlift jump. And we'll almost always start with something explosive, lower extremity exercise. And then we'll go to a lower body strength movement. A lot of times this is just a basic squat or lunge. We'll add little variations to it, maybe a pause, maybe doing it for speed, that kind of thing. There'll be changes in sets and reps over the course of the season. And then we'll pair that typically with an upper body pull and or press. And then we finish with some posterior chain and and core work. So typically a mix of either rotation or anti-rotation work for the core, and some eccentrically focused hamstring work, occasionally Nordics, but a lot of times we'll use RDLs and various variations of those. So we're typically in the gym for about 45 to 50 minutes. It's a very structured program. It might look like what I might do for a lot of other sports. There's no soccer specific, what I would say, nonsense in there. We're not standing on a Bosu ball and kicking a soccer ball or anything like that. We're not heading a weighted ball or anything like that. It's just, you might not know that they were soccer players if you saw the session. You might say, oh, this is a professional women's basketball team, or maybe even field hockey or something to that effect. And that, I think, that's by design. For my athletes, I would say that 70 to 80% of the training, the building blocks in the weight room is going to look the same regardless of the sport. And then the rest is going to be sport specific. So we'll do that at least once a week for 4 weeks, and then switch it up. The girls are quite strong. We've got 30 players, and I would say about 15 of them could do maybe 8 to 20 non-kipping pull-ups on their own. They could knock out, I don't know, maybe 20. Everyone could knock out 20 perfect push-ups. Everyone could squat 1.25 to 1.75 times body weight. And these are like team averages. I have some outliers there, right, but they can all clean their body weight. I've got a couple girls that can clean about 1.5 times body weight. A couple girls that can squat 1.9 times body weight. So some pretty tremendously strong and athletic girls. I think we've got, 3 girls who have vertical jumps at points above 0.75 of a meter. One who is like pushing 0.9 meters on a vertical jump, standing vertical jump. So we're actually known as a team for our athleticism, but we have great speed numbers, great endurance numbers. Our 30-15 numbers are off the charts as well. So I'm really lucky to have a coach who has fully bought into what we do, and his style of play is very physically demanding. So we train incredibly hard. In fact, our numbers for a women's team exceed anything I've ever seen outside of the English Premier League academy level, where you have boys that are just 16 to 18 and just training for the sake of training, and they're not really playing any matches of anything meaningful. But we're regularly at 32 to 37K in a week of total meterage. And, of the 30 girls, 15 or more can run over 31 kilometers per hour. So these are numbers that you typically would see in a men's team. And, these women are just phenomenal athletes, and they're really hard, what I would call hard-nosed, hard-working, fully bought into the training process. They realize you can't play for our particular team unless you're very fit. So it's a really good match in terms of, I've got a coach that lets me do whatever I want to do. He fully trusts me. He plays a style that is dependent on me doing my job very well. And we have had a lot of success with it. And I think to a lesser degree, that's true with the U.S. international soccer. You see U.S. international soccer is probably more physically developed than a lot of their European counterparts. We're bigger, faster, stronger a lot of times than, say, most other clubs or most other countries. But our club in particular, in our league, is we're known for our athleticism and fitness. So you pretty much couldn't get away with what we do without training like we train. Our games are easy for us because of how hard we train during the week.
Is that culture of physical preparation, was that there when you arrived as a performance director, or is that something that you had to bring in?
So with this coach that I just kind of applauded and praised is an interesting one, because he's the first coach I've ever worked for who hasn't, in a team sport setting, that hasn't explicitly brought me in. So all the other team coaches that I've worked for sought me out and brought me in unsolicited. So I immediately had buy-in with all of these other coaches.
Mm-hmm.
This coach, he was brought in and he was told that he needed to work with me. So I already existed at the club. I was primarily working with the men at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And when the team expanded and brought in a women's side, I began to work with the women. So initially he was quite skeptical of what we were doing. For about the first year, he liked what he liked, and I did things a little bit differently. But it took about 9 months, little under a season, for us to really mesh well together, and for him to kind of let me do whatever I need to do. It's really been the most freedom that I think I've had. There's a tremendous mutual respect. And really, at the end of the day, this is what I would hope for a lot of other strength coaches and their relationship with the head coach or the sport coach, is that really, if we do our job, we're going to make the sport coach look better. I think we know our field better than they do. We wouldn't try to step into their field, technical, tactical, whatever the sport is, and try to do their job for them. But a lot of times you see that actually happens in our field, where the sport coach vetoes or tries to control the strength and conditioning coach or the fitness coach or the sports scientist, even though that's not their area of expertise, which is unfortunate. But I think that if you can get into a working relationship where the coach trusts you and gives you the ability to do what you want to do and what you feel is necessary. Of course, if you failed and you had athletes get injured, then they should have the right to pull back and everything. But if you know what you're doing and you do it well, then that's the ideal scenario. So initially, I think there was a trust building phase. I had not worked with anyone prior to that point who basically didn't give me full authority. And it took about 9 months or so with this particular coach for him to let me do what I want. But now it's probably the best team sport coach relationship that I've had. We've been very successful. And as I said, it's a very big part of our team. When I was with the men's side, we had a lot of success. We won a couple league championships, 2 league championships in a 2-year stretch. And that actually led me to go to a first division club. Other clubs noticed this, that we were also very physically dominant. And I think what I have found, that guy brought me in, but he didn't know anything about me. I think he brought me in by convenience. He just realized that I was in town and he could probably get me for cheap at the time. So I worked with him, and they had a lot of success. To be perfectly honest, I knew basically nothing about the sport of soccer football at the time. I probably had to look up how many players were on the field or something. I don't know. I was a total idiot in terms of soccer. I didn't play it or anything like that. I didn't watch it. And now I've become a student of the sport as much as I can, and certainly as much as is necessary to do my job well. And I just trained the crap out of these guys, this men's team, from very early on. And we got incredibly fit and strong, pretty much using the methods that you might use in track and field. We used interval-based running, and we did a lot of hard physical training, never incorporated the ball. We lifted heavy. We did some plyometrics, and this team went from, nearly the bottom of the league to winning 2 league championships overnight. And I don't in any way proclaim that I'm solely responsible for that, but we were known again for our physicality, and we dominated teams with our speed and our fitness. And that immediately got buy-in. And if you can show that that's the effect that you can have, then I think success breeds buy-in. Coming in with a reputation will only get you so far if that reputation isn't followed with results. I've come in with a reputation before and really admittedly have that advantage sometimes, but if I were ever to come in and not produce results, I would fully expect to be fired or demoted or something to that effect. And that's what should happen. If you're good and you produce results, then you should be given the opportunity to continue to do so. And if you don't produce results, this is a results-based field, and you should be critical of yourself and recognize why that might have been the case.
What would you recommend to strength and conditioning coaches that maybe aren't lucky enough to be paired up with a sports coach that allows them to at least, kind of show what they can do so that they can get results, so that potentially they can get more buy-in? What happens when you're in a situation where you're kind of, shut down by the sports coach, where they don't want players to even maybe sprint sometimes? They don't want them to lift heavy because that's not what you need on the field. So how would you approach it from that perspective?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I have not worked in too many scenarios like that, except for this current one, but I do run a business, and I have a daughter, and I have a wife, and I have worked on other sports teams. So I think a lot of it just simply comes down to relationships. And if you want to win every relationship, if you want to win every debate, so to speak, any point of debate or point of contention, and you think that the best way to do that is to tell the other person they're wrong, you're very misguided. I think it's really important that you sit back, sometimes swallow your ego, and educate first. So if, as a sports scientist, you educate and say, very subtly point out why something might be needed, what the best way to achieve that end might be. And then I found in team sports settings that it can be very useful to make it so that the sport coach believes that the idea is his or hers. So don't try to take credit for the idea itself. Let them have credit, believe that they made that choice. Ultimately, I think that is their choice to make. They're the executor of the team. So they make the executive decisions about whether we go in the weight room more often or not at all, or whether we sprint or we don't sprint. And so you educate them, and you point things out like, hey, if we sprint minimum once a week at this type of volume with this type of intensity, not only can I get guys faster, but the research shows pretty well that I'll reduce the likelihood for injury. And you can just kind of subtly make these cases, drop little tidbits, in your correspondence with the coach and your day-to-day passings with them, to where they start to understand why you have these strongly held beliefs. Because ultimately, I think if someone is good in their job at what we do, we don't believe what we believe for no reason. We have a reason for what we believe. So if that's strength training, well, any dummy in our field knows that you can improve performance and you can reduce the likelihood for injury if you strength train. It's irrefutable. If anyone wants to say otherwise, they are willfully ignorant, right? What you do is a little bit of a matter for debate, but the fact that strength training improves performance and reduces your likelihood for injury it's not debatable. It's a sealed deal. So there are still certainly coaches that don't believe this is to be the case, or certainly coaches who believe that you can just strength train in the off season and not strength train all year long, or you can strength train once a month and reap rewards. And it doesn't work like that. So all it comes down to is educate them on why would we strength train in the first place? What are the benefits? Then what are the details? How often? What kind of strength training? Is soreness okay? Is it not okay? These types of things, so that, if I get athletes a little bit sore on Tuesday, from the Tuesday strength training session, and they're reporting that they're sore on Wednesday, and telling the coach that they're sore, does the coach and the athlete know that that's okay? You know, the match isn't for 4 more days, that it's okay to be a little sore, and that training hard is not a bad thing. It's an important thing, and it's necessary for long-term sustainable success. You know, so I think a lot of it will come down to educate why you believe what you believe, and don't try to take credit for those beliefs, because ultimately the sport coach probably believes you want the same thing. You both want team success. You both want higher performance, lower injuries, but maybe the team coach thinks that you'll get fewer injuries because if you sprint less in training, or if you don't strength train. And clearly he's just misinformed, because those two things are not supported by any of the research or anecdotal evidence. So if you can somehow show them without doing what we might call a told you so, you know, kind of saying this is my idea, or trying to take credit for anything, or, you know, say I was right, you were wrong, that I found it to be much more successful.